Hey, what's going on everybody? This is the Elevate Investment Group, and in today's video we want to talk about the marijuana market. We want to look at some data and some studies to derive what we believe to be the total value of this marijuana market amongst the major countries. This video is kind of a build off of our first video where we talked about the stock market behavior regarding these marijuana companies. That video is linked just up right here if you want to take a look. So the first thing we did when we looked at this video is we looked at a report by Stats Canada, which said that in 2017, marijuana sales domestically were $5.7 billion. So $5.7 billion was spent on marijuana. Now that proves to be a useful piece of information when we mix it with the concept of prevalence rates. Prevalence rates in this context are the total amount of people that identify as marijuana users relative to a country's population. So the prevalence rate in Canada is 12.7%. 12.7% of Canada's population of 36.29 million people identify as marijuana users. Now this takes into account the very frequent smokers and the very infrequent smokers and kind of colludes them all into one category. And that is a total of 4.6 million people. So of these 4.6 million people, they spent a combined $5.7 billion. However, for the sake of this video, we want to look at it from a grams consumed perspective. So given that for the most part people smoke marijuana by the gram, $5.7 billion divided by $10 a gram is 570 million grams. Now we use $10 for two reasons. One, that's pretty much the price you have to buy it for, the street price, so to speak. And two, these major corporations who are aiming to sell recreational marijuana have identified $10 as the ideal price per gram, given the cost of production and other business factors. Now the next thing we do that makes things interesting, we look at some of the high prevalence rate countries. Now we apply this as follows. As you can see, most of these countries are in the double-digit rates for prevalence rates. But the prevalence rate as a percentage doesn't tell us everything. We need to look at a few more factors. One thing we need to do is look at the respective populations of all these countries. And when we apply the population and the prevalence rates, this shows us the total quantity of people that will resonate with this market. Now this is important because these are the people that will identify and see value in the products these corporations are aiming to sell. And therefore is very prudent for consideration when we look at it from a business perspective. Unfortunately, not all information is given to us, so we have to make a few assumptions. What we want to do is we want to get the number we got from Canada for the mean consumption rates and apply that to other countries and give a bit of a range for that, take into account differences. So as we said earlier, 570 million grams in Canada was consumed, and we divide that by 4.6 million pot smokers from the prevalence rate. That means 123 grams per individual was smoked annually. Now 123 grams equates to about 1 gram smoked every 3 days, which is really not that much. So because we have the population of people who use per country, we want to apply a range that we believe they would smoke as well. However, we do have to consider the fact that 123 grams may be high for some of these other countries. In Canada, it's much more socially acceptable to use marijuana recreationally. It's a lot easier to access, and there are climates in certain regions of this country where conditions are optimal to grow marijuana, such as in certain parts of BC. So because of these factors, we thought it would be good to apply a level of grams consumed per year, probably a bit under the rate we got from Canada. So if 123 grams is too high, what would be the right amount? Well, we wanted to apply a range of 70 to 90 grams. So because we have the population and we have the user population, we now want to apply 70 to 90 grams consumed per individual in these populations. And we also make the assumption that each gram is worth $10. When we do that, we get the following numbers. So as you can see in the first illustration, applying 70 grams per individual, we get a total value of $57.73 billion from these 10 countries. Applying the number we also got from Canada of 5.7, we get $63.43 billion. Quite a substantial amount. And the next number we will apply is 90 grams. And at 90 grams, population staying constant, and the only thing changing is quantity of consumption, we get $74.233 billion. And again, applying the Canadian statistic, we get $79.93 billion. So almost $80 billion. Now 70 grams per individual consumed annually is really not that much, and 90 grams consumed per individual annually is also not that much. 70 grams consumed per individual annually equates to once every 5 days, and with 90 grams we get once every 4 days. This is important to consider because it kind of helps you to understand on a calendar year basis. It's also important to consider that we made a few assumptions here. We made the assumption that marijuana will be sold at $10 a gram. We made the assumption that those prevalence rates are accurate. In my opinion, they're actually underquoted, and the reason for that is because some of these countries still have a negative stigma associated with using marijuana. So a lot of people would probably lie on these polls when they're trying to find the information. And we also wanted to apply what in the world of finance is called a sensitivity analysis. This is basically a best to worst case scenario where we input the variables and input the changes in the variables to see what the outcome is and how it differs based on the changes in the variables. So our sensitivity analysis, based on what we've come up with so far, is that we want to look at a range of values for the mean consumption rate for these populations and for the price per gram, because the price will change as this industry develops. Economic factors such as supply and demand and production will change the price. So this is the best and worst case scenario. You can see that even in the worst case scenarios, the market is quite substantially large. And that's just something we really want to share with you guys. If you have any feedback on this, shoot us an email or give us a comment down below. The next few videos on this marijuana market series will be discussing the individual companies rather than the broad market. So if you did like this video, please give us a thumbs up and a subscribe, and we hope you guys have a nice day. Thank you and take care.